Welcome back to the Mental Game Gym podcast. I'm your host and mental performance coach, Andrew Crome, and this show is all about helping athletes train the mental side of their game so they can show up with more confidence and focus and resilience, especially when it matters the most. And today's topic is one that I think every athlete needs to hear, and we're talking about mental reps, more specifically how the best athletes in the world train their minds with the same intensity and intention that they train their bodies. Because it's easy to focus on the physical stuff, working out in the gym, ice time, training your physical skills. But the real edge comes from what's going on between your ears. And the athletes I speak to, they know that. And they know that they should be spending time working on the mental side of their sport. But a lot of them don't know how to. So this podcast aims to give you some of those tools. The best thing that you can do is work with someone like myself on the mental side of the game. So it can be tailored and personalized to you and your personality and your sport and your position. But for today, I'm sharing 5 stories of elite athletes, from Michael Phelps to Serena Williams, who treat mindset like a daily workout. And they aren't just inspiring stories, but they're real examples of how mental training shows up in the biggest moments of sport. And we're not just talking about these stories, but we're going to also talk about how you can take what they do and start putting it into your own game. Let's start with the first story about Michael Phelps. He won 23 Olympic gold medals, but what people don't always realize is that Phelps trained his mind just as hard as he did his body. So, for example, every night before bed, he visualized what he called the perfect race. He closed his eyes and he went through his race from start to finish, going through every stroke, every turn. He even imagined how the water would feel. But here's the key. He didn't just visualize what would go right. He also visualized what could go wrong. So a bad start or water in his goggles. He thought about everything that could throw him off. And his coach, Bob Bowman, actually trained him for this adversity. So in practice, he'd break his goggles. He'd throw him these curveballs on purpose. So Phelps would practice becoming comfortable, being uncomfortable. He would stay calm and composed when these things were happening. So in practice, as I said, he would break his goggles and then he would have to swim with water filling up his goggles. And he'd have to come up with a plan of how he was going to do that. And then you fast forward to Beijing 2008 and he dives in for the 200-meter butterfly final and his goggles fill up with water. But because of all that mental preparation, he doesn't panic. He counts his strokes, he sticks to his plan, and ultimately wins the gold medal. So what you can take from that is start small, and before practice, run through your ideal performance, but also visualize what could go wrong. Have a think about what could come up for you that would make you uncomfortable. What will you do in that situation? How will you stay calm? What will you say to yourself? And that's how you train for pressure. If you can introduce that into practice, then that's great, because that's where these things need to take place. You start preparing for adversity when you're in practice, so that when you are in a real competition, real performance, you're able to handle it because you've been there before. So through visualization, but also through practice, putting yourself in those situations and preparing, what would you do? What would you say when those or if those things would happen? So let's look at the next story, and this is about Serena Williams, one of the greatest ever tennis players. And one of her biggest tools that she used was self-talk. And if you ever watched her play, you've probably seen her say something like, "Come on, Serena." And she would be saying it out loud between points. And what she's doing there is she's coaching herself in real time. And tennis is an interesting one because she can see her coaches, but they are not allowed to interact with each other. So what she's doing is she is coaching herself. She needs that voice to help her come through this adversity. And she used this in 2015 in the French Open. And she was losing the game. She was feeling sick and tired. But she used her self-talk to reset, to refocus, and to help her fight her way back. And she once said, you've got to speak to yourself like a champion, even when you don't feel like one. So here we're talking about using self-talk under pressure. And you can use it by choosing a phrase that works for you. Use it in practice. Figure out what works for you. Try some different things out. Something just as simple as reset, next play, next point, next shift. Be present, keep moving, and practice using it after mistakes. Practice using it when you feel uncomfortable, frustrated, if you feel like you want to give up, right? Because your brain will want to spiral, and it will often come up with things that aren't helpful. So I always say to people, you need to talk more than you listen. So if we're talking to ourselves and we're saying things that are helpful, they don't have to be positive. They just have to be helpful. And everybody's going to be different. So think about for you what it is. But if you talk more than you listen and you repeat these things often, you're going to act like you want to. And something that you can do is have your 3 words. How do you want to perform and how do you want to act? So say it's focused, composed, resilient. Every time you walk through a door, you say those 3 words. And you think about how many times you walk through a door every day. If you say those 3 words every single time you walk through a door, you're going to be saying it 100 times a day, right? Maybe more, but the repetition here, and that's the most important thing, it builds the strength. The more you say it, the more you do something, the more strength it builds. So practice that, come up with those things. And again, the more you practice, when you get into that competition environment, you don't panic because you've been there before. Those 3 words are going to come up, or that phrase that you have, or that single word is going to show up, and you're going to be able to use it and stay calm and stay composed, stay focused, and keep moving forward. Okay, so let's bring our focus now to hockey and Connor McDavid. And he's got the hands, he's got the speed. And most of the athletes that I talk to look up to him as an athlete that they aspire to be or have the skills that he does. But one of the things that sets him apart is his ability to be completely present on the ice. And it's not just about the mental prep before the game, like we've just discussed, but it's about staying fully in the moment during the game. In interviews, he's talked about how important it is to let go of the last shift, no matter what happened, and lock back into the play that's happening right now. That's all he can affect. And that's mindfulness in action. So the ability to stay grounded in the present and not get lost in overthinking or frustration, thinking about what has just happened or what could happen. And one of his coaches said he doesn't let a mistake follow him into the next play. He's always in the moment. So you can use this as well, using a short mindfulness reset before games or shifts. So it could be 3 deep breaths, feeling your gear. What does your stick feel like? Or think about for your sport, if you don't play hockey, what other gear that you have, the floor underneath your feet, your breath. These things help you stay present because they're happening right now. And remind yourself, this moment is all that matters. No past, no future, just this shift. And if you introduce mindfulness into your daily life, spend 5 minutes. Even if you're just walking around, have a look at what's around you. What can you hear? What can you see? What can you smell? That is being mindful. You don't have to sit and meditate just as long as you're in the moment. I get the athletes that I work with to practice using concentration grids. It's a simple task that gets them to focus on a grid of numbers. All the numbers are jumbled up and they have to find those numbers in order. So going from 1, 2, 3, etc., all the way up. And every time they get distracted by a thought, a sound, all they need to do is bring their focus back to the number that they're trying to find. And this is mindfulness practice, but it's also fun and engaging. You can do it as a competition. So it's a great way to do it, but we can do it in so many different ways. There's times where we're standing around waiting in our day-to-day lives. Can you use that moment to just be present? When you're brushing your teeth, can you focus on each tooth that you're brushing? No matter what you're doing, as long as you are focused on something that is happening right now, then you're being mindful. And all of this practice helps you when it comes to game time. You're better able to stay in the present moment and also catch yourself when your focus drifts to the future, to the past, and bring it back to the present moment. And it's all about this practice, these mental reps. So the fourth story is about Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks. And he's also one of the best at resetting quickly. He's known for having a short memory. So he throws an interception, he doesn't dwell on it, he resets fast. And this is the same with Russell Wilson. In the 2020 Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes didn't have a good first half. Things weren't going well for the team. But he came out in the second half calm and confident, and he led a historic comeback. His mental coach said Patrick's superpower is recovery. He resets faster than anyone else. And what he does to help do that is use a physical cue. So it could be a breath, a clap, a shift in posture, something that he can go to, that he can do in the moment to help him release what has just happened. So you can do the same thing. If you have a routine where you recognize you're tense, you're frustrated, you need to do something about it. If you don't do anything about it, then you're probably just going to spiral out of control. So you need to release that mistake, the frustration. And you can do that by taking a breath or using a physical cue. So we could be clapping our hands, wiping your hand on your shirt, clicking your fingers, digging your foot into the ground. And this is all about coming back to the present moment. You're thinking about mindfulness. This kind of fits with that. We're focusing on something that is happening right now. So a clap, a breath, feeling the floor under our feet. And again, everybody's going to be different. So if you practice this and figure out what works for you when you're in practice, then you can start implementing it into your performances. So finally, let's look at the fifth story, and it's about Kobe Bryant. And he wasn't just mentally tough. He was obsessed with getting better, and he always had a plan. So he wrote down in the off-season specific goals that he wanted to achieve. And they weren't things just like get better, but things like improve left-hand finishing, shoot 1,000 free throws per week, master 3 footwork techniques. And he once said, I had short-term goals, long-term goals, and I checked in on them daily. I wasn't just training, I was chasing something very specific. And that's one of the things that set him apart. His clarity plus his obsession with the process. And I've been speaking to people lately about them setting goals and if they do that. And most people set a goal at the beginning of the season, this is what I want to achieve. But then we stop there. They don't go deeper into it. Well, how am I going to achieve that goal? What are some small things that I can do every day? How can I make these goals more specific? So that's something that I think every athlete, every person should be doing, is what are the specific actions that I need to take to get me closer to reaching my goals? So pick one skill that you want to improve this season and get specific. And then think about exactly what are the steps you need to take to get there. How many reps? How often are you going to do it? And then track it every day. Track your progress. How am I doing? And if you want to take it further, write it down and start journaling. Write down what you worked on, how it felt, what you're learning. And that's how you can turn your training into transformation. And it stops you going to training and just going through the motions. If you have a plan specifically, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm trying to improve, then that's what you're going to focus on. you're going to be making gains in practice and not just going through the motions. So let's recap. We looked at Michael Phelps and how he visualized adversity. Serena Williams talked herself into focus. Connor McDavid stayed grounded in the moment. Patrick Mahomes reset very quickly from mistakes and setbacks. And Kobe Bryant set precise goals and chased mastery. So we've got different sports, different people, different stories. But one common thread there is that they trained their minds just as much as they trained their bodies. And you can do it too. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to be an Olympic athlete. You also don't need to wait until things go wrong. You just need to start with one mental rep. So here's your challenge for this week. I want you to pick one of the mental skills that you heard today. So visualization, self-talk, mindfulness, reset cues, or goal setting, and put it into practice. And I'd love for you to send me a DM on Instagram at the Mental Game Gym or tag me in a post. I really want to hear about what you're working on, how things are going, and also how I can help you. Next week, I'm going to kick off a brand new segment, and I'm going to call it Mindset Mythbusters. And we're breaking down the biggest lies that people believe about confidence and toughness and the mental game as a whole. So don't miss that one. Make sure you subscribe so that you get notified when it comes live next week. And if you're ready to actually train this stuff with structure and reps and support, that's what we do inside the Mental Game Gym. You'll get these tools and strategies and coaching to build real mental strength so you can start showing up as your best self consistently. Check out the link in the show notes to book your first session with me, where we'll discuss your sport, your journey, what you're trying to work on, what I can help with, and I can support you and push you to get the results that you want. So thank you for listening. Keep showing up, keep repping the mental side, and I will see you next week.